Hey Becky.
Mm. Hey John, how are you? Happy Monday.
Thanks. Happy Monday.
So today's call is just going to be, we're going to keep doing Q&A. We're doing it the last few calls. People seem to be pretty receptive to it. Um, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to, unmute yourself or ask in the chat.
I guess can you hear me right?
Ooh, it's super choppy.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you better now.
Okay. I'm going through a kind of a crappy area right now, so there might not be cell service. Um, I think for me, because I currently work full time and I work like 9-hour days. Sometimes handling guests can be pretty hard to manage, especially when you're at work and you gotta take these calls and everything. Would you recommend some sort of services? I know like Guesty has automated support messages that they can assist you with. Hospitable has a partnership with I forget who they have it with, but do you currently use any of those, or even like a co-host? Do you currently use a co-host, or do you have someone managing your messages for you? Um, what kind of advice would you have for that?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, first step, definitely, I think having a property management system is important. I use Hospitable. I've also used Guesty. I've also tried HostAway and I've done, demos with Logify and all of them. I personally have landed in Hospitable. I think they're the most innovative site. They're extremely helpful. They're the most AI driven site. And they're very user friendly. Now they do have automated messages that's set up, no matter what, you should set that up. That's very easy. If you don't have, okay, let me backtrack. To use a property management system, it's best to use if you have more than one OTA, right? So if you're using Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com, you want to use a property management system in order to integrate those all seamlessly, making sure you're not getting double bookings or anything. It's one centralized area to have your messages come through, as well as your automated messages where you can edit them and they'll all come through there, as well as your smart lock, your multi-calendar, everything like that. So if you're only using Airbnb, which you should use more, but if you're only using Airbnb, then there's no purpose to have a property management system because it doesn't really help you with all those additional tasks. Um, but if you're only using Airbnb, you can also set up automated messages in Airbnb as well. So if you are using a property management system like I am and most of the people in the program are, and most hosts are, you can set up automated messages in there. They do have the option if you're in your inbox when a guest messages you, it basically has ChatGPT immediately in the inbox where you can do like you can respond suggested by AI, or you can write out your message real quick and they'll correct it just like ChatGPT would. They're also in the works of having AI auto responses. And I haven't been in their most recent town halls, but that should be coming out here in the next few months to where you will have that automated help for those random messages, right? So auto messages currently there. Those are your standard messages like inquiries, new reservation, check-in, check-out, reviews. For the random questions that come in, like people who ask, how many cars can we fit in the parking lot? Do you have early check-in? Like these random questions that you generally have to deal with, those are going to be like more of the AI responses that they're currently working on doing. So automated messages handle probably 95% of the messages, and then the remaining random questions will be handled at some point by hopefully AI, if that works.
Right.
So
So
on the
go ahead.
yeah, some
Uh,
some other some other options, and the cheaper I don't recommend going with co-host immediately. I would definitely, especially for guest messaging, I would say, well, it's different levels of co-hosts. So I started off with a VA. I paid her like 1% per booking, which ended up being like, I don't know, maybe 50 to 75 bucks a month. And she would help me monitor my messages. But I mostly did it for nighttime when I wasn't available.
Right. That's kind of
The,
my issues that I run into. Go ahead,
yeah.
sorry.
So the only thing with that is like it does require a lot of training. It is a lot of training at first. It's a lot of work to get them trained up, to get responses, to create FAQs on how you want them to respond. You don't want them to be like, where's, the nearest ski resort, and they send the people to the nearest snowboard shop. And I've seen that happen with other hosts who have talked about it. Um, I have had it to where my VA, when I was having her do it, there was a power outage, and it was just a citywide power outage, but she was calling to have a handyman come over and check everything, which cost me money, even though it was a standard power outage, which I could have just provided a screenshot from the city or something. So there just has to be a lot of teaching along with that. So long term, it works great. It's not an immediate fix. And then for a co-host, you know, a US based co-host, someone who's more experienced, they're going to cost, more of a percentage of your bookings, probably
Yeah.
anywhere. If they're just doing messaging, probably anywhere from 5 to 10% is what you're going to see. And yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think for me it's the messaging at night. Unfortunately, a lot of my guests, they like to it seems like they only text me at times I'm not available, like
Yeah.
during during the work hours. And based on because I use Hospitable too, based on what
Hmm.
you said about the AI response tools, that could be really helpful in the future as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, I have guests that respond and text me in the middle of night, in the middle of the night, or I'll get 3 a.m. calls. And it that's just one of those things where I was wondering if you had some sort of tool that you use, or something else that can automate that. Um, but the kind of the I guess for me, I might need to set up some of those things. So if they ask about like the Wi-Fi or something like that, I know that they can automatically respond to it. So maybe I'll have to mess with it some more. But I was looking at other services online that have those kind of auto response features and stuff like that. So um,
Mhm.
I was just wondering your take on that. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Yep. So those other platforms, I haven't used those. Like I see their, advertising, but I haven't used them myself. Um, yeah, I'm too particular on how I want things done. I haven't tried that before. Okay. So John asked, what's your thoughts on a telehost pricing in addition to price labs? I have not used IntelliHost pricing. I keep meaning to look into it, but I have not used. If anything, I would use IntelliHost for more of their market research versus like pricing. I don't know anybody who uses IntelliHost for pricing. Um, all the big people that I follow that have hundreds of properties, they all use Price Labs, so I've stuck with that. I know Frankie, he's in this call. He was looking into IntelliHost and kind of comparing it to his pricing. Um, if-
Yeah, I did. I happened to look into it, and I looked at a bunch of reviews. I guess you can say, or got some people who had some criticism on it, and they didn't look too good. From what those people told me, they weren't too happy with it, and
Mhm.
they felt that Price Labs in general is a little bit more far superior. Plus, I believe Price Labs had a lot more customizations that you could make. Um, which worked out in host's favor versus the other one. I think there's a lot less that you can do. It just kind of did its own thing, and you just kind of let it roll. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I found, and I did decide to pass on the IntelliHost one, and we're stuck with Price Labs.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. So I noticed that, AirDNA, they are primarily a market research site, and then they offer pricing services, or Price Labs is primarily pricing and then offers some market research. And I like to stick with what the platform is, what they're most known for and what their resources are best used for. And I want to be able to control the most in my pricing, which Price Labs allows me to control as much as possible, as well as see, like, if you go under their, the market research and market dashboard, I can pretty much see where their AI is pulling recommendations from, and I can make critiques from there, which I really like having that accessibility, opposed to like, even Hospitable now is offering dynamic pricing, which is fantastic. And I hope that one day it'll become very customizable. It's just not quite there yet. It's more meant for the, pretty for the people who don't use anything. But where's I going with that? They just don't, yeah, have the customizing yet. Oh, they don't tell you where they got the information from. So in the calls when they first launched dynamic pricing, everyone's like, "Great, this is awesome. How are you coming to this price? How are you breaking this down? How are you seeing the demand? What are the demands?" Like, they're not providing any of the information to why they're coming to that conclusion. They just like to say, "Oh, we're pulling the information from multiple different platforms," such as, you know, they're implying like price labs in different sites and IntelliHost and stuff like that, which I don't particularly agree with. I want to see it.
I can share
Um,
I can share what I've experienced because I've been trying it.
IntelliHost?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Please
So
do.
so we've had it going probably 3-4 months, which it gives me the time to get out of it because it has not increased revenue like they say it does.
Yep.
Basically, it's a race to the bottom from what I've seen.
Hmm.
They look at your well, they had to change back in April how they collected the data from Airbnb because Airbnb said they were screen scraping. So in order for it to run, you have to install a Google plugin, and then you have to have IntelliHost and Airbnb up and running. So apparently, it looks at your clicks per day, like when people are going and looking at your calendar, and then it based on how many clicks they're getting, it gives you a likelihood of being booked on that day. And it works with Price Labs. It doesn't, they actually help tailor Price Labs and all the criteria in there to work with what they're seeing. But from my experience, it's been more of a race to lower my price very low. So
Yeah.
where they say it should increase your revenue, I have not seen that at all.
Yeah. I think that's when they say that too, they're kind of speaking to the people who don't do anything with pricing, and if somebody's using Airbnb smart pricing, or they're just doing standard pricing, yes, any platform, whether it's Pricelabs, IntelliHost, AirDNA, Wheelhouse, any of them will increase your revenue probably 20-30%. Like, that is for sure, and I think that's who their marketing is speaking to. But for people who are really trying to be advanced in their pricing, if you're probably maximizing in Price Labs, you know, at least like 95% of the way, and these additional information might help just a few more percent. So that's kind of how I see it. But that's really good information. I didn't know that how they changed how they were retrieving information, which makes me think, because AirDNA too retrieves information by just scraping, the public view of the listing. So I wonder if they're adjusting too, especially now that, we're doing total pricing and everything. It's going to be interesting. All of these softwares are going to change a little bit over the next couple of years to try to keep up with how Airbnb is adjusting.
Yeah, you had to set them up as a co-host. And
Mm,
by setting them up as a co-host, the way they were scraping the data, Airbnb got very upset at them. And now, in order for it to run, you have to have a tab open with IntelliHost running and a tab open with Airbnb logged in.
yeah.
Otherwise, you can't get the data. So, like, I was gone for a week and had my computer off, so I had no data for that week.
Mm, yeah.
I
I
actually
know. I've
saw
been over
some
there.
people post pictures of like emails that they got from uh Airbnb specifically stating that they have to remove IntelliHost as a co-host on their listing.
Yeah, I got that email as well.
You got it? Yeah, yeah, I saw that.
That's crazy. That's good to know, though. These sites are trying to pull whatever data they can. Okay, so some more of the comments. Dana did mention that the digital guidebook is great to provide info and videos for Wi-Fi and information. Definitely. I do a lot of my information in both. I put a lot of my information in my automated messages. So when people first book, all those basic questions, how many parking spots, how many people can I have? Can I do events or not, smoking, whatever the frequently asked questions that I receive, I typically answer in the new reservation message. And then in the check-in message, I kind of reiterate the information that they're going to need upon arrival, like just reminding them obviously about the code and stuff, providing Wi-Fi details because people aren't going to want to go back in their messages to retrieve the Wi-Fi details. They're just going to ask you again. So over providing information is kind of helpful as well. And I track like a lot of the questions I get, I track. And if I see the question come through more than once, then I just apply it into my messages. And the digital guidebook is extremely helpful, especially for locations and any additional information, how to use things if you have projectors or video games or, any sort of arcade games or anything. Like you can add all of that information, videos, everything inside of a welcome book, guidebook type of tool. What tools have you used to manage cleaners? And they notified via text. Yeah, I also use Turno. They do charge, as long as you're hooked up, they don't do it. Let me start over. They don't charge a monthly subscription as long as you're hooked up to Hospitable. What they do charge is a payment processing. So if you use, credit card, I think it's 5% and ACH is 3%. I think they come down a little bit. And if you are not looking to pay that, so the idea is that if you use Turno for auto scheduling and auto payments, it's saving you time tracking down your cleaners to make sure they're going to show up, and then make sure they've completed the cleaning, making sure they're sending you photos, as well as, making sure that payment is completed. If you are willing to do that stuff yourself, which takes a lot of time, and if you have Hospitable, they do have the operations section where you can add teammates and then you can decide what kind of notifications they're going to get. So every time a new reservation comes, they get a text. Every time 24 hours before checkout, they get a text. At checkout, they get a text. But these things, there's no way to verify that they received the text, which is the problem I had for a while when I was trying to do both with different properties. And they would claim they wouldn't receive the texts, and I'd be like, well, Hospitable says you did. And I just have no way, because it does not show up in your inbox like that, but it says that it sent the message. I really like that in Turno, that as soon as the cleaner accepts the cleaning, I can see that. I can see when they're starting the cleaning, I can see when they complete the cleaning, and I can see that the payment is sent out. Having the information is pretty big to me. It also has we can upload photos, or the cleaner uploads photos and automatically timestamps and dates the photos, which is necessary when doing any claims on Airbnb.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, of course. Yep. Dana and Frankie use a company called Well and Good in Florida. They have access to the calendar and they have their own system within Breezeway. So that company is pretty big and is very efficient with their systems and their companies. I noticed that a lot of Airbnb cleaners are more of either very small teams or single individual cleaners and not large companies. And there's pros and cons to both, right? There's pros to having a single individual cleaner who really pays attention to detail. But I know the Well and Good one that Dana and Frankie use in Florida, they also have inspectors that come through afterwards and make sure everything is up to par. And then I imagine, I'm not sure if you guys pay through Breezeway or if they have an automatic payment system themselves.
They all have automatic. They invoice separately.
Yeah.
But they're also not nationwide. They're only in like, I don't know, 15 different areas, something like that.
Yeah, that's what I
They seem
figured.
to be yeah, they seem to be in a lot of the major you know, areas where there's a lot of Airbnbs.
Yep. Okay. All right. So I've been through the chat questions now. Does anybody else? I see a few more people. Sri has joined. Sanjay has joined. Mia has joined. Anybody? We're just going through a Q&A today. We can go through any questions you'd like. We can go through pricing. We can go through listing optimizations if you'd like to review your listing. We can go through. Does anybody have questions on like conversion, like is your property converting? How often is it on the first page? How often are people going from first page to viewing your listing and then listing to booking?
I had a question,
Hi.
Becky.
I'm
Oh,
sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
That's okay. I talk a lot. You can go
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
ahead.
All right. Yeah. So I have a question about, I just started
Yep.
like this month. And my I'm still like hoping to get a lot of booking. But the question for me is like so I'm using Verbo, Booking, Airbnb, and there is one more. I forgot it.
Hospitable.
Hospital, yeah. So when I was checking Volvo, there is a suggestion that says like, it's time to increase the rate, something like that. While like I'm not even meeting the what you call market average occupancy. So how like, to handle that kind of notification? Do we really need to take it like serious, or just like a push notification randomly?
It's kind of a push notification randomly. Airbnb and Vrbo and Booking.com all have recommendations, what you can do with your pricing. A lot of the time, it's more optimized to be like for occupancy versus rates. And our goal is to balance occupancy and rates. Um, so I definitely recommend doing 95% of your pricing within Price Labs. And I take note of the recommendations that Verbo and them have, but I go and kind of verify it within Price Labs. So if Verbo is telling me that on September 16th, 17th, and 18th, prices are skyrocketing 30%, but I don't
Mhm.
know why, right? So instead of like just taking the recommendation and not understanding why, I like to go into Price Labs, look on their market dashboard, go
Mhm.
look at those dates and see, okay, I'm just referencing, is this site also noticing that there's a huge increase? Is it telling me why? Sometimes I'll go and I'll look on, figure out what event is it. I'll look on Ticketmaster, I'll Google it, I'll figure out what's going on. Um, is this, s- recommended rate increase justified or not? So I like to double check is what I like to do. And then if I'm going to increase the rate for whatever reason, I'm going to do it in Price Labs.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah, of
yeah. Thank you.
course. Okay, Fayuz, I see lots of hosts complaining how Airbnb is now not fairly removing reviews when they are readily retaliatory or other valid reasons. Any experience with this and how to handle it? Yes, so Airbnb is very much allows guests to write a review based on their experience. That can be, it doesn't matter if there is noise across the street that has nothing to do with your property. It doesn't matter if they, dislike the neighborhood. It doesn't matter if they, um, I don't know, they can go find stuff. If they go find a little pile of dirt in the corner of the smallest crevice in the whole house, like Airbnb is like, well, that's their experience and it's justified. The only time that they really remove reviews is if there's evidence of them, planting false, I don't know, like let's say somebody were to come in and plant a cockroach in your house for whatever reason, but you had pictures, like you have receipts of having pest control done recently, you have cleaning, pictures that clearly show that specific area and time stamped and everything, and it was probably within a short period of time. then you have enough evidence to fight that review and say that this person was intentionally trying to receive a refund. As for retaliation, if someone asks for a refund for unreasonable things and you refuse to do it, if they tell you, like, I will give you a bad review, and if you don't give me this, then that's immediate evidence. But a lot of the time, they're smarter than that. They're not going to tell you what they're going to do. So in the beginning, when you are new, it is unfortunate, but kind of important to try to appease those guests as best as you can. Whether it's needing to, it's not always, I don't always jump to giving a refund. It's probably getting on a call with them, figuring out what's actually wrong, hearing them out. A lot of people just want to be heard. Maybe it's that. mm, I'm not sure. Maybe your cleaning crew was done late and they got to check in late. So maybe it's, providing them dinner because they're just hungry and they've had a really long drive. Or, you know, I don't know. Like people have creative ways of trying to appease the guests that are probably more people pleasing, or I don't know, more than I am. Um, but anyways, the point is that once you gain reviews and you have a good amount of sufficient reviews, and each review is not as important, if you have, 30, 40, 50 reviews, one 3-star review is not going to kill you. It's not going to hurt you so bad that you can't move on. And there are sometimes just those guests that are going to be problem causing. So in the beginning, it's just kind of reacting, but it's keeping all documentation, making sure that you're getting photos after every single cleaning, making sure that they're time stamped, making sure that you keep track of, your pest controls, any sort of landscaping, anything that is done. Airbnb is very, very evidence driven. That's all that they want. I got my Superhost badge, but I don't see my listing being higher in terms of ranking. I already have guest favorite. Any experience on this? Yes. So guest favorite and so Superhost badge does not mean that you're immediately going to get better ranking. It's based on search, really. So there's a significant amount of people that are looking for Airbnbs that search for Superhost. So now you are part of that criteria. When people go and search, they're more likely to search for your property as a Superhost property, and they're more likely to, be comfortable with your property or trust it, or they're booking it because they're more comfortable with the credibility that you have. So after a while, so if you got it today, over the next couple, probably month, 2 month, 3 months, people start really viewing that Superhost. They're seeing it, they're starting to book more. It's performance based. It's now that you're going to gain more occupancy. And once you gain more occupancy, you exceed your market occupancy, and then you can start raising prices. I hope that makes sense. It's not immediate, it's still performance based. Superhost just helps performance. I think also setting the stage to guests, telling them they may be bugs or debris in the area. We do routine maintenance and have weekly cleanings for the pool, and we spray for bugs at whatever frequency, but just put in writing something you may see bugs outside. Yep, it is always good to, like, if you can disclaim things prior, it's just setting expectations, right? The goal is to set expectations, and then people tend to be a lot less surprised and upset about it.
I had a
Even
question
if,
back.
oh, yeah, that was loud.
Sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
What was I gonna say? Oh, do you have any experience with the getting rid of the photo tour and just putting all the pictures in additional photos and like having it show up in the order that you want it to show up?
Yeah, so I've heard about this a lot. And the people that, like, we all have somebody that we idolize and follow. The people that I follow kind of are still in the like testing stages of that.
Hmm.
Um, you can call Airbnb and tell them to turn off your photo tour, and they can do that. I think that's probably a better option than if you were to put all your photos under additional photos and then order them, then you're not utilizing all of their tools, right? And they want you to utilize your tools.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's more beneficial to have the photo tour turned off. But I believe once you do that, you cannot have it turned back on, is what they tell you. I do think I haven't had enough time or to test it out myself, or kind of had that validation from people that, you know, I refer to, but it makes sense. It's definitely something I'm also testing. So I'm trying to say.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, when you set up your photos for your listing,
Mm,
you kind of assume, or if you try to think of like the experience of when, okay, how do I want guests to see my photos? Like, what order do I want them to see the photos in? And if you take that mentality when you're setting up your photos, you can't really take that mentality, because as soon as they click on your picture, it takes them to the photo tour, and like your, I don't know, living room or whatever is always the first thing.
mhm. Yep.
But you could have like some of your better pictures, so to speak, might be, for most places, at least in our area, are the outside, the pool
Mhm.
area, whatever. So it's like, I'd rather put those pictures in front of their eyes immediately.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
so,
100%.
you know, all right.
Yeah, it was very frustrating when they changed that. I don't know. I think that was like probably a year ago in their last, 2024 spring update. I think it was that they might have done
Hmm.
that. And there has been quite a bit of pushback on it. And people are just still trying to test out different theories on it. But it is like, if you have a pool, that needs to be at the top.
Yeah.
People before, when I was ordering them, people like getting them past like the first 10 photos is not easy. So making sure those are your absolute best photos is so important. But if you test it out, if you call Airbnb and have them remove your photo tour, like, and test it out, obviously keep me updated. I'm just trying to gather the facts, because I can't
Yeah.
say with 100% certainty that it's, you know, helps or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like you said, if they say that you can't get it turned back on, it's like, oh man, who the heck
Hmm.
knows?
Yeah. Yep.
Can you just take the pictures out from each of the rooms? Are you able just to delete them and just keep the categories, but not have anything listed there, and then just put everything under additional photos? Is that like an option?
Well, that's what she said. Like, if you do that, then technically you're not you really utilizing all of, like, that's a tool, and therefore you're really not utilizing the tool, and they don't like that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
But it's also definitely something people are trying. They're trying each of them, both options. I'm just not finding concrete evidence of, like, you know, um,
One's better.
answers yet. Yeah.
Do you utilize an Airbnb? They have the option between doing a short-term cleaning fee and a long-term cleaning fee. Do you utilize that feature? And because most hosts that I've talked to, they charge more than what they would charge the cleaner. But I was
Hmm.
wondering what your take is on that.
Yeah, so charging more than a charge a cleaner, that really depends on, again, your market. Um, Cleaning fees are just like nightly rates. They have to be competitive, and especially right now with total pricing. If you were to come in and charge an extra $50, your guests have no clue where that money is coming from. They don't know how the total price is being determined. All they know is that now you're $50 higher than everybody else, and they're not going to book, right? So it really doesn't matter where you put the money at this point. You can completely remove your cleaning fee and just add it to your nightly rate. It wouldn't matter, because the guests can't see the difference. As for like longer term stays versus shorter stays, I think on Airbnb, it has like, if you book more than maybe 2 or 3 days, it's a different price versus less than that. I don't think, again, that I, it's like okay, with how things are now, total price, you can rewrite things a million different ways to all say the same thing. So if you wanted to keep the same price, whether people stay 1 day or 10 days, and then just create a heavy last minute discount, then that works. Or if you wanted to create a really low um, cleaning fee for only 1 night stays, then you can do that as well. You can kind of write it out in different ways. As long as you're competitive, it doesn't matter how you do it. that make sense?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yes, that makes sense. The total pricing, maybe that's something I haven't quite seen. I mean, I know that there's an
Yeah.
option with the Airbnb. I remember when I was booking a place, there was a you could use a slider and then it would just give you the entire price. Like if I'm zooming in
Hmm.
on a map somewhere, there'd be like a slider to show the total price. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, but now it's mandatory.
Now
Now
it's
it's across everybody. Let me show you here.
yeah,
Okay. So can you see Airbnb?
I can, yes.
Okay. So yeah, first thing I like to tell you is now you'll see one price for your trip, all fees included. It doesn't matter what state you looked in. All of 2024, it was like only in California that did it require this. Whether you were physically located in California or you were searching for a property in California, it would be total price required, and everybody else would be optional. Now it is 100%, total price no matter where you look at. So if we came in here and tried to look for a property in Raleigh, and we're trying to look for, a 4 bedroom. Now, obviously, I always look at location, but it's always going to tell us total price. So, and then total price is going to include, okay, so this right here, it looks like it's, 301.19 per night for 3 nights. But that per night cost is inclusive of nightly rate, cleaning fee, and service fee, all of them. And we have no
Okay.
idea what the actual service fee is because it changes. It can be from anywhere from 12% to 15% is what they're going to charge the guest. So when we need to make adjustments to pricing, if we were to come in here and say, oh my gosh, I'm $300 higher than everybody else, or 500 or whatever, then I just need to take that difference and I need to break it down per night. So if it's 3 nights and I need to, $100 per night, I need to come down in my pricing. Because it's not going to be as easy as, oh, this person has 149 a night, this person has 179 a night, and I just need to bring it down $30. No. So we just need to take the difference, divide it by the days, and that's how much we're going to bring down the pricing.
Okay. When did that change?
It was official, I think, in February. So when they
I
officially
don't know why.
required it.
I don't even know why I didn't even look at that.
Mhm.
That's crazy.
Mine hit in April.
It was
Yours
April?
did in April.
That's when I saw it hit for me.
Okay.
What state are you in?
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah, I'm in Houston, so maybe I don't maybe that's it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I do remember it was finicky for a few months there. It was hit and miss. Sometimes I'd look, it'd be there, sometimes it wouldn't be. But so officially maybe then in April. Makes sense.
Do you have, because I was looking online for some products. There's something that I was looking at called the WYND Sentry. It's able to detect like e-cigarettes, marijuana, cigarettes. Um, I personally just have a huge problem with people smoking marijuana in the house. The cleaners come in, the handymen come in, and they have to basically just spray the place down the entire time. People will come out on the porch and smoke it. Um, this also has like a decibel meter as well built into it.
Mhm.
So, and I've had a lot of noise, like neighbors complain about this, and it actually, one incident actually led to my listing being banned on Airbnb for 30 days because of it. Um, Similar to the neighbors were complaining. But would you recommend any of those devices, or do you have any experience with having some of those
Mhm.
devices? And and if you do, or perhaps if you would have one, what's your recommendation if it starts to detect that these people are indeed smoking or they're vaping and they're violating the house rules? Because I mean, I have a strict no smoking policy. How do you go about doing that? So
Yes. Yes. So I have the Minute device. It does noise detection, decibel reading, as well as smoke detection. I think it's only cigarette smoke. That might have changed in the newer versions. I'm not sure. But so in a property that I manage in Tallahassee, I did have this problem where we were having parties often enough, and neighbors were, sending messages through Airbnb and contacting, and we installed it because of that, because they were complaining. So we were like, hey, we want to be proactive about this. We're installing this device that will help. So what it does is, if it ever you were able to control what that decibel reading is in the house and what it reads, and then as soon as it hits that line, it'll automatically send a message, because it does integrate with Hospitable. So it'll integrate with Hospitable. It'll automatically, when it hits that line, it'll send an automated message saying, hey, this is your first warning. Like, we know you're having a good time, but please keep things down. You can send multiple messages giving multiple different warnings, up to the point where it's like, 3, 4, 5 messages. And then you're like, okay, the cops are being called at this point. Like, this is an issue now. A lot of the time, as long as you have those measures in place, neighbors are a lot more receptive, and understanding that you're trying. And then, but make sure that if you do this, to put it in your listings. So I always say with cameras, Ring cameras and everything, to make sure to put it in 3 different places in your listings: in the safety devices, in your description at the bottom, and under additional information. Those are the 3 areas I put. Make sure that if it's a camera, it records video as well as audio. And then if you have a Minute reader or a Minute device, make sure that you say that you have, like, I don't know how I have it worded in there, that I have a Minute noise detector and smoke detector within the house. So it's not recording any audio. You could say that as well. But that way, if you do go to Airbnb and say, here's the problems, um, when they require you to come back and kind of defend yourself, that you can take this evidence to them. And these are the messages sent. This was the attempt made. Make sure that you're not promoting the house as a party house. And then your situation, if you're having this frequently, when did you go live?
So
Right.
I went live last November, and then I got my second property in Houston in March. Both properties experience it. The property that experiences it the most is the one that's closer to downtown, and that's the one that started in November. I would say 1 out of every 3 people that come to the place, it ends up just smelling like marijuana really bad.
Right. Is there any room? What does your occupancy look like compared to the market? Is there any room for pricing increase? I do notice that kind of brings in a different group of people, if you have the
It's
room for that.
Yeah, and that's a great question. My occupancy since November averages right around 85% a month, and that's kind of my goal, is to hit 85%. February was kind of a rough month, but with the rodeo in March, that what was that 100%. So, um, yeah, raising the rates up, I think does help. Weekends are typically high. The problem that I mainly have is those weekdays getting filled, and
Hmm.
I want as much occupancy as possible. And Houston's kind of a market where a lot of the bookings are last minute, so people will book these last minute bookings for $100, $120 a night, and that's usually where I see the issues arise from. I I think maybe my issue is I worry that the place isn't going to get booked, so sometimes I sometimes I frantically lower the prices down, but I've also let it go for a few months as well, and it does end up booking. Maybe I need to do some adjustments in price labs, but it's mainly those weekdays that happens. Um, I just worry that it's not going to get booked. That's kind of my main concern regarding that.
Right, right. If you could, so in Houston, here I will screen share.
Mhm.
So I know it's very uncomfortable for anybody. Everybody wants that high occupancy, even though a lot of the time it could be more based on rates versus occupancy in the market. So this market specifically has this is for 3 to 6 bedrooms. What size property is yours?
3 bed, 2.5 bath.
Okay. So let's say 2 to 4 bedrooms. You're looking at occupancy, seasonality, lead time isn't so much about, exactly what size of property you have, more so of just larger versus smaller homes. So being in a similar realm, you're going to get the same occupancy. I put budget to upscale, 180 days or more, 20 more reviews. Still, so 27% is the average occupancy in the Houston area. So we try to be, 5 to 10% above the market. And so if on an average month, I mean, if you were sitting anywhere between 60 to 70% at like solid rates, that would probably pay you out the same as it would if you were hitting 85% at lower rates. And then you have more room for those more last minute, like less last minute days. How am I saying this? Let me look at this. What is your occupancy so far for August?
Yeah, let me check real quick.
Yeah.
I have to go hospitable real quick. So in August, well, I gotta go to metrics.
Mhm.
30, and then custom August 1 through 31. It's currently at 48%.
Okay, so we are at the beginning of July, which is technically about beginning of July would be 60 days in advance. And do you feel like those rates that you have received on that, was it 46%, are at more of like premium rates, or are you getting them at more kind of bottom line rates?
So, I mean, it's usually weekends are between 250 and 300. That's kind of
Okay.
where we sit at. On Price Labs, I set the minimum to 250. Price Labs usually lets to put it at between 225 to 237, but
Mm-hmm.
I know I can get a bit more just because I'm a super host, and my total review are 4.8 stars. This one, I'm specifically talking about the one that's closest to the city, the one I started in November.
Yeah.
The other one has gotten 12 reviews. It's relatively kind of.
Oh, I think you cut out there. Did I cut out or he cut out? Can you guys hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Can you hear
Okay,
me?
cool. Yes.
Okay. What was the last thing that I said?
You're talking about your weekend rates, probably being between 250, 300, and this is specifically
This
for the closer to downtown property.
right. So Price Labs kind of likes to put it a little bit under. I set the minimum at 250. And we typically see bookings along that lines of 250 to 300.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And actually in August, about 40% of the bookings that I have are from booking.com, which is kind of weird. Usually I don't get a lot of booking.coms. It's maybe about 10% of the bookings are from booking.com.
Mm.
So yeah.
I'm not sure what the events are going on in Houston. Booking.com is a lot of either like what I noticed is like event travelers or people trying to get lower rates. Hopefully you still have a marked up price on there,
Yes.
and then no one night minimums.
No one
But
night minimums. No.
Okay, good.
They're all two until you reach 5 days out, and then I put
Mhm.
it to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in price labs, if you look at like 60 days, 90 days occupancy in advance and you're like, 30, 40, 50% above the market, I would try raising if you're concerned and uncomfortable with like having a lower occupancy, I would just raise it a little bit. Raise it $5. Raise your base price $5 and give it, a month to kind of really hit the algorithm, make adjustments, and then check your occupancy again for a few months ahead of that. And as long as that'll probably bring, I bet if you raised your base rate $5 and you checked back in 2 months, you'd probably be more like maybe 20, 25% above the market at that point. And then you, in theory, can raise it another $5. And then you're just getting more and more comfortable with the fact that occupancy is, your stater is going to be more like 60 to 70%, but you're going to have higher rates for that. And then very last minute, you'll probably still be able to fill in those days, but your more advanced bookings will be higher priced, bringing in
Right.
just a better guest experience.
Right. Not last minute, but far out bookings. On Price Labs, I just have it market driven right now.
Yeah.
I believe you have a property in Houston as well. Do you also
I
do
went San Antonio.
Antonio? That's right. But
Mhm.
they do hot tax and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
that's unfortunate. But
Yep.
well, that helps out a lot. Appreciate that.
Of course. Yeah, that's what I would do if I were handling it. And I went through the same thing with my San Antonio property. I loved that it was 8500% all the time. And then I checked and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need to get comfortable with, you know, less occupancy. Okay, so would you recommend scaling in the same area, completely different states? So I personally like to be in 2 to 3 different states, is kind of how I'm doing real estate in general, whether it's long terms or short term or some midterms. Right now, I have one in Indiana. I have two in Indiana. I have one in San Antonio. And then I got my one in Arizona. So right now I'm between those two. And I would probably be accepting of a third. I like the idea of having different seasoned markets. So San Antonio is a very, very steady market. Year-round seasonality is very steady. My rates are pretty steady throughout the year. So in my mind, it's more reliable. In the Arizona markets, it was very, very high springtime, very low summertime. So I like one property being able to compensate for the other. That's what makes me comfortable. I also like to not put all my eggs in one basket to where if regulations change or tax, changes, like in San Antonio, 6 months after I got my property, and I probably could have looked into this ahead of time, but I didn't know at the time. 6 months after I got my property, they applied that city county hot tax. And that was what almost 11% and took a lot of my profit margin. So if it wasn't for properties I had in other locations, that would have hurt me a lot more than it did. And now, as of February, the city Airbnb is remitting city hot tax, but you still have to pay manually the county one. And so now it's like a determination of, okay, is that going to affect my rates? Are my rates going to come down because now people are paying an additional 10% taxes on top of what they were already paying? Still having to test that out and kind of see. So far, my rates have been pretty steady. But yeah, that's my opinion. I don't like having all my eggs in one basket. I like having some different seasons in there. Um, and I don't want to get more than like 2 to 3 markets. And then I like to scale in those markets and really become an expert in those markets. If that makes sense. If you're doing management or, if it's not your money, if you're doing management, co-hosting, anything like that, my opinion, once you understand pricing and market research, you can do it in any state. I'm very comfortable understanding pricing, understanding the market, what I need to know about it. Doesn't matter if I'm in Florida or if I'm in Colorado or if I'm now back in Alaska, and I'm very comfortable if I had to do one up here. So, but things are just expensive here.
Can I ask another question, kind of a follow-up
Yeah,
on the
of course.
scaling? Thank you. I haven't thought about the factor of seasonality. I was thinking more like, oh, I have to build a team and those type of things. So that's good to think about seasonality as well. I like that approach. In terms of like, I was looking into, and I messaged about it on the Facebook chat about purchasing already set up property and then just adding kind of a little bit of decor and stuff to it, like taking over a lease versus starting from scratch. I
Mhm.
have thought that if I take over something, I could get the account transfer so I can get, if it has good reviews, I can keep the reviews or something, but I guess that's not something that you can do. But it seems from your response that you have done something similar in which you take over an already an STR, but I guess you have to start it, kind of on your own
Yes.
account. So any advice on that, on what you prefer or your experience?
Yes. Okay, so different scenarios here. My second property in San Antonio, I did take over from somebody else. When I was just a client in the program, I took it over from another client when I was only a client. And I took it over because I did the underwriting for it. I talked to them a lot. They just didn't have the time to keep up with it. They kind of had standard rates. And I was like, I know that I can come in and I can fix the pricing and probably make 20-30% more revenue than they're currently making. So no matter what, if you're going to take over a property, I don't care what their underwriting is, like do your own underwriting, get a second opinion. Like don't care what theirs is. Like everyone, underwriting is kind of, it's not subjective, but everyone kind of does it a little bit differently. So the results sometimes can look different. And then things change, as the market changes. So that's my biggest thing is do your own underwriting or have somebody that that's experienced do it for you. And then, so I took over that property, and then I also took over the property in Indianapolis or in Bloomington, Indiana as well. And so same thing, do your own underwriting. I found potential with that property. It worked as a short term, but it also worked even better as a midterm because the college there, and it was in the middle of three big hospitals. So there's tons of travel nurses, and I knew I could make, if not the same, if not possibly more money as a midterm renting it out per room. So I went along that strategy. When depending if like when you're considering how much you're going to pay them for furniture and stuff, if they cannot prove that they are cash flowing, then and they're just trying to get out in kind of a hurry, if they've only been operating for a year, I typically will pay like 50 to 75% of their receipt furniture. I highly, highly, highly recommend getting a really, a good inspection done. I'm currently in the process of taking over, not I'm taking over, I'm helping somebody take over another property in San Antonio. And I'm, before this call was going over whole inspection reports on the condition of the furniture, the condition of the house, the condition of whatever, the rugs, the mattresses, everything like that. So we had agreed upon a normal purchase price for the furniture, but now after the inspection, we're like, okay, this isn't in the condition that we expected it to be. Even with it, we knew that it was running for over a year. We took that into account, but now it's kind of probably going to come down a little bit more even in price because we're gonna have to replace some things we weren't expecting to have to replace. So underwriting, inspection, big thing. Do those before, okay, three things: underwriting, inspection, permits. Make sure these things are done before you put any money into it. It is going to be the worst if you're putting a deposit on a place and you're putting money towards furniture and then you get rejected for, a permit application. Some areas don't allow you to transfer the permit. That's not allowed in some areas, such as San Antonio. So you have to reapply. And depending on what has popped up in the area since the prior tenant received their permit, then you can be disqualified at that point. You don't know. Regulations changed. In San Antonio, regulations are a lot different when I got my property in San Antonio 3 years ago versus what they are when this tenant we're currently talking to got theirs versus what it is now a year later. So underwriting, inspection, permit, and then you can move forward with that. If they're profiting and you're trying to determine, and they're telling you, well, we want, 50 grand for this, for you to take over our property. I don't implement, like, their current listing means nothing to me because I cannot take it over. Airbnb does not allow that. That is the quickest way to get suspended. And then I determine what their cash flow is. And then typically what I notice is like furniture plus cash flow, like 1 year's worth of cash flow, 1 or 2 years worth of cash flow is kind of standard. So if they're making $24,000 a year in cash flow, that means you can pay, if you can make that as well, which you should be able to because it's proven, then you can pay that off in a year. And then if you're paying, $20,000 in furniture, then you can pay that off. Your ROI is 2 years, which is still like, I don't know, 16, I don't know, 18 to 24 months, 18 to 20 months is like pretty good ROI. It's kind of max ROI I'd want for an arbitrage is probably 24 months. And so 18 to 24, if I know the property is profitable, I'm willing to do, because anything after 2 years, then it's just cash flow in my pocket. So those are the big things. I don't know if you guys want this, but I'm going to write it down in the chat. Do your own underwriting.
So they would typically agree to do the whole permitting even though we haven't closed a deal and go through that effort?
We'll do the permit last. Do the underwriting first, do an inspection. Well, do your underwriting. If you agree that you want the property, you think it's going to be profitable, then immediately start applying for it. Because at that point, you probably already have, it's already been agreed upon that the landlord is willing to transfer the lease to you. And then you're already in discussion of what that lease is gonna, how much your rent is gonna be. If you feel like it's pretty secure, then yes, I would do the application right after underwriting. And then while you're waiting for the application, then you can do the inspection.
Got it. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Is there like any escrow service so they can also get some assurance that I have the money, or it's just like money at the end?
Is there any what services?
I don't know if in California, like for example, when you buy a property, you put the money on escrow. So it's like a third party company that holds the money,
Yeah.
So if anybody has to pay, everyone starts paying like a deposit or something, and then if it doesn't go through, you get your money back.
Yeah. I am not sure. I had not utilized anything like that. And I'm not sure if there is that kind of thing if you're not buying a house.
Got it. So you just
I
kind
would not
of
know.
bring the money at the end, or maybe show proof of the money at the beginning, at least so they can
Yeah.
have some assurance. Got it.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
that makes sense.
Or you can make sure that it's like you can kind of do a deal where if you want to secure the lease, feel more comfortable, you can put maybe half the deposit down and then have them agree that if the application does not go through, that the deposit is refundable based on that. You can write those terms as well. Just make
Got
sure to
it.
get it in writing, email writing or something.
Got it. Thank you.
Of course. All right, guys. Emily on Wednesday is going to be talking about what to do. We just hit Superhost qualifications. If you, for whatever reason, lost your Superhost, or if you want to know what to do if you do lose your Superhost, Emily's going to be talking about that on Wednesday. So hope to see you guys there. I'll be also listening. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.